From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where, yes, you can see I'm wearing my cricket kit, that means you know what kind of monologue is coming, but bear with me. Don't let your eyes glaze over just yet, because I promise I will make it worth your while. But first, I will complete my traditional salutation by saying good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Thanks ever so much for joining us tonight. If you checked the Sports Wire news today, you may have seen a flash out of Nottingham, England, but then if you live in North America, you probably didn't. But right in the middle of day 4 of a deciding test match against New Zealand, only a few days removed from serving a one-match suspension owing to a punch-up in a bar involving some rugby players or something or other, England's talismanic captain Ben Stokes announced his sudden, immediate retirement from international cricket earlier today. Now, what's the first lesson here? Well, there are two first lessons here, really, if we're being technical. The first lesson is nothing good ever happens in a bar after midnight, especially if you're a prominent public figure. Number 2, if it's a fight between cricketers and rugby players, my money is on the rugby players. Now, the theater of this thing was almost too well scripted. The news breaks while Stokes is in the middle of an exhaustive 11-over fast bowling spell. To put it in baseball terms, he's pitched about 6 innings at this point. Minutes later, with the news filtering through the ground and the crowd still processing their shock, he runs in and takes a wicket with his very next ball. Now, to put that in baseball terms, he basically struck out the first hitter. He then opens the batting and comes out swinging like a man possessed. It was vintage Ben Stokes, pure adrenaline, zero compromise. But behind the romance of that final dance lies a much colder reality. Just days prior, Stokes sat in a television studio looking hollowed out, completely wrecked, really quite unwell, in fact, like a man running on nothing but willpower and anti-inflammatories. He looked for all the world like a young man who had reached the end of his proverbial rope. To a North American audience, sports leadership is a fairly simple matter. In baseball, the manager wears a uniform, sometimes, but sits in the dugout chewing sunflower seeds, executing an analytical script. If the team loses, they take the blame, but their knees and hamstrings don't give out in the process. In cricket, the captain is out on the field in the blazing heat for 6 straight hours, sometimes longer, throwing his own body into the gears of the machine, making real-time tactical adjustments while also fielding his position and also, in Ben Stokes' case, being one of the team's frontline fast bowlers. To put it in baseball terms, while the match is ongoing and his team is on the field, he's basically the manager and the pitching coach and the fielding coach and the left fielder and the starting pitcher. It's not unlike an old Bugs Bunny cartoon that you may remember. And the nations that play this game, which for obvious reasons is a group of nations that maps almost identically onto the former outposts of the late period British Empire, being the test captain is widely considered the second most high-pressure job in the country, right after prime minister. It's a position where you don't just manage a roster, you carry the literal psychic weight, the class structures, and the historical anxieties of an entire country on your shoulders. It's a crown of thorns that has divided cultures and often, quite often, broke the men who wore it. And if you want to gain meaningful insights into the cultures and the modern histories of that particular group of nations, it's really impossible to do that without exploring and analyzing the relationships that the people of those nations have had with the captains of their test cricket squad. So here, for your kind consideration, in roughly chronological order, we present 10 of those captains. Number 1, W.G. Grace, England. To understand the gravity of the role, you have to go back to the 19th century and the man who essentially invented modern cricket, Dr. W.G. Grace, a man to whom, it should be noted, my co-host bears a rather striking resemblance, as you may have noticed from today's thumbnail. With his massive flowing beard and imposing physical presence, Grace was arguably the world's first true sporting celebrity, one of the towering figures of the Victorian era. But more importantly, as captain of England, he codified the country's rigid class divisions directly onto the field. In those days, cricket was strictly divided between gentlemen, wealthy upper-class amateurs who played for the honor of the game, and players, working-class professionals who bowled themselves into the dirt for a weekly paycheck. Grace was technically an amateur doctor, yet he demanded massive expenses that dwarfed the wages of the professionals. As captain, he ruled English cricket with an iron, often ruthless fist, establishing the template that the England captaincy wasn't just about winning a match, it was about protecting the social hierarchy and moral authority of the British Empire itself. Number 2, Douglas Jardine, England. If Grace established the social order, Douglas Jardine proved that an England captain would risk an actual international geopolitical crisis just to win a game. In the 1932-33 Ashes Tour of Australia, Jardine was faced with an impossible problem. An Australian batting phenom named Don Bradman, who was systematically destroying English bowling and, by extension, destroying England's presumptive status as the reigning monarchs of international cricket. Jardine, who was a fiercely cold, aristocratic product of Winchester and Oxford, devised a terrifying tactical counter-strategy that came to be known as bodyline. He ordered his fast bowlers to deliberately aim 90-mile-an-hour leather missiles directly at the upper bodies and heads of the Australian batsmen, packing the field close to catch any deflections that resulted. It was the cricket equivalent of throwing intentional 95-mile-an-hour brushback pitches at a batter's throat over and over again. It triggered absolute fury in Australia, causing near riots at the grounds. Some might say actual riots, including the English players who began dismantling the wickets so they could wield the stumps as improvised weapons should a pitch invasion materialize, and forcing the Australian government to threaten severing trade relations with Britain entirely. Jardine won the series, which was his only job, and he never broke any rules, it has to be said, but just the same, it was considered such an ungentlemanly display that he permanently stained his legacy, never captained England again, proving the position of Test captain could push a man to value victory even over international diplomacy. Number 3, Sir Frank Worrell, West Indies. For decades, the West Indies cricket team was a collection of brilliant, explosive athletes from across different Caribbean island nations, but they were always managed and captained by white colonial elites. That doesn't change until 1960, when Sir Frank Worrell was appointed as the team's first permanent black captain. Worrell didn't just manage a sporting side. He performed an act of profound nation building. He took a fractured group of players separated by intense inter-island rivalries and unified them under a single, proudly West Indian identity. Under his leadership, the West Indies pioneered a joyous, aggressive, yet deeply disciplined brand of cricket that captured the imagination of the world. When his team toured Australia in 1961, their elegant, sportsmanlike play was so profoundly moving that 500,000 Australians lined the streets of Melbourne just to wave them goodbye when they left. Worrell proved that a cricket captain could become the ultimate symbol of post-colonial dignity and racial emancipation. Number 4, Imran Khan, Pakistan. In Pakistan, cricket is not just a pastime. It's the primary cultural glue that holds a highly volatile, ethnically diverse nuclear power together. No one understood this better than Imran Khan. In the 1980s and early 90s, Imran ruled Pakistani cricket like a fierce, benevolent dictator. He possessed a majestic movie star charisma and an ironclad authority that allowed him to discover raw talent in the streets and mold it into world-class champions through sheer force of his personality. He demanded absolute loyalty and fierce, uncompromising combativeness from his side. When he led Pakistan to a miraculous underdog victory in the 1992 World Cup, he didn't just win a trophy. He provided a fractured nation with a collective moment of intense national pride and validation. Imran's tenure as cricket captain was so structurally massive and his status as a national savior so deeply entrenched that it served as the direct political launchpad that eventually saw him elected as prime minister of the country 26 years later. So basically, he's the only guy on this list who is in a position to say which of those two jobs is actually more high pressure than the other. Unfortunately, we can't put the question to him right at the moment because he is currently in prison on corruption charges that some feel were invented by the opposition party in order to take him off of the political chessboard. But we wouldn't know anything about that here in the United States, right? Would we? Number 5, Arjuna Ranatunga, Sri Lanka. During the 1990s, Sri Lanka was a heavily overlooked cricket nation viewed by the traditional powers as a nice, polite team that was fairly easy to push around. Arjuna Ranatunga changed that forever. Possessing a stocky build and a famously defiant, combative attitude, Ranatunga took over the captaincy and transformed Sri Lanka into a fiercely protective anti-establishment brotherhood. He pioneered an aggressive, high-risk tactical style that revolutionized the sport, but his defining moment came when he stood up to the powerhouse nations of England and Australia. When Australian umpires repeatedly called his star spin bowler, Muttiah Muralitharan, for an illegal bowling action, Ranatunga refused to back down. He aggressively confronted the officials on the world stage, threatened to walk his entire team off the field in protest, and single-handedly shielded his player from international ruin. By leading Sri Lanka to a shocking World Cup title in 1996, he forced the global cricket establishment to respect his island nation, cementing his status as a legendary national defender. Number 6, Graham Smith, South Africa. In 2003, South African cricket was in a state of complete shambolic ruin. Their former captain, Hansie Cronje, had been disgraced in a massive match-fixing scandal and then subsequently died in a plane crash, leaving the team broken and a post-apartheid nation deeply cynical. In a moment of pure desperation, the selectors handed the captaincy to a 22-year-old kid named Graham Smith. What followed was one of the most grueling, physically punishing exercises in leadership that the sport has ever seen. Smith was a burly, bruising opening batsman who led entirely from the front. For over a decade and a record-breaking 109 test matches as captain, he has absorbed immense physical and mental punishment, famously batting with a broken hand against Australia just to try and save a match for his country. He managed the delicate, politically charged racial transformation of the team while building them into an absolute juggernaut that went on to dominate the world briefly. He mended the fractured soul of South African cricket through pure, unadulterated grit. Number 7, MS Dhoni, India. To understand the pressure that MS Dhoni faced, you have to understand that in India, top cricketers are viewed as living deities, really, and the captain is personally held responsible for the emotional well-being of over 1 billion people. For nearly a decade, Dhoni bore this staggering, unfathomable weight with a calm, unbothered composure that earned him the nickname Captain Cool. Hailing from a small working-class town rather than the traditional metropolitan cricket hubs, Dhoni perfectly embodied the aspirations of a modern, rising India. He was a master tactician who treated the chaotic, high-stakes pressure of a cricket match like a game of chess, never letting the public hysteria pierce his calm exterior. When he hit the winning runs to secure the 2011 World Cup on home soil, he triggered the largest collective celebration probably in human history. Dhoni's captaincy was a masterclass in psychological survival, proving that a man could walk through a furnace of 1 billion expectations and somehow never let them see him sweat. Number 8, Brendan McCullum, New Zealand. For decades, New Zealand cricket was defined by a quiet, understated modesty. They were the guys who played within their means. But in 2012, Brendan McCullum took over a struggling side and completely rewrote the Kiwi sporting identity. McCullum discarded the defensive, survival-first mindset and instituted a radical, ultra-aggressive philosophy rooted in immense joy, fearlessness, and absolute respect for the game. He demanded that his team play with an explosive, entertaining flair, treating every match like a high-stakes heist. They refused to sledge their opponents, choosing instead to overpower them with breathless, attacking tactics. This culture didn't just revitalize New Zealand cricket. It took them all the way to a World Cup final and laid the ideological groundwork for the modern game that we see today. McCullum proved that a captain could fundamentally alter a country's entire sporting DNA, showing that a small nation could become a global trendsetter by playing with absolute freedom and smiles on their faces. Now, what else should you know about McCullum? Well, he is the current head coach of England. He and Ben Stokes have always been viewed as sort of a package deal, which is to say, if you're in the market for a cricket coach, he might be available sooner than later. Number 9, Steve Smith, Australia. The Australian sporting identity is fiercely tied to a specific type of aggressive, hard-nosed machismo. They play right on the edge of the rules, a cultural trait known colloquially in Australia as the line. Outside Australia, it's known colloquially as same old Aussies, always cheating. In 2018, that culture completely collapsed under the captaincy of Steve Smith. During a tense, closely run test match in Cape Town, South Africa, TV cameras caught an Australian player, Cameron Bancroft, using a bit of yellow sandpaper to illegally rough up the ball before returning it to the bowler. And the ensuing fallout was nothing short of a full-blown national trauma. The Australian public was very deeply embarrassed. The Prime Minister held an emergency press conference, and Smith himself was hauled before the media in tears before being slapped with a 1-year ban from the sport. And it wasn't just a cheating scandal. It was viewed as a profound moral failure that violated the egalitarian myth of the Australian fair go. Smith's downfall proved that the immense pressure to maintain Australia's dominant sporting supremacy could completely warp a captain's moral compass, leading to absolute national disgrace. And where is Steve Smith today? Still batting fourth for Australia, still filling in as captain whenever Pat Cummins' hamstring starts acting up, which is to say, as long as you're one of the world's best batsmen, Australia will forgive you for basically anything. Number 10, Ben Stokes, England, which brings us right back to where we began. When Stokes took over the captaincy in 2022, English Test cricket was dead in the water, having won, amazingly, just one of their previous 17 matches. Alongside the aforementioned coach, Brendan McCullum, Stokes unleashed something called Bazball, a wild, hyper-aggressive, counterintuitive style of play that completely threw out a century of traditional cricket dogma. He ordered his players to play without fear of failure, transforming a stuffy, conservative game into a breathless, much must-watch summer spectacle. But the physical and mental price of that revolution was catastrophic. As an all-rounder, Stokes was asked to be England's best clutch batsman, their most hostile shock bowler, and their sole tactical leader. Combined with intense off-field media scrutiny and recent disciplinary curfews, the workload became a human meat grinder. By walking away today, mid-match, Stokes gave us the ultimate modern example of the toll the captaincy can take. He arguably saved English cricket, but he had to completely break his own body and soul in order to achieve it. Epilogue: the human cost. When you look at these 10 stories we've just gone through, you realize that the Test cricket captaincy is one of the most fascinatingly cruel leadership positions in all of modern sports. It demands that a single human being simultaneously possess the tactical mind of a military general, the physical durability of an Ironman triathlete, and the political diplomacy of a statesman, all while operating inside a high-pressure media pressure cooker for days on end. It's a position that can turn a kid from a small town into a national deity or push a proud leader to trigger an international trade dispute over a 5.5-ounce hunk of leather. When Ben Stokes walked off the turf at Trent Bridge today to a roaring, emotional standing ovation from the crowd, he wasn't just walking away from a game. He was stepping out of a blast furnace. He joins a long, illustrious line of titanic figures who realized that while representing your country at the highest level is the greatest honor a sportsman can achieve, carrying the literal soul of a nation on your back eventually breaks even the strongest of men. We love this sport, some of us do at least, for its statistics and its history and its elegance. But as Stokes proved today, the real drama of Test cricket will always be the human cost of wearing that crown. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you ever so much for your kind attention, and I dutifully transmit you into the powerful but loving arms of my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, the one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
Tactical nuke incoming!
A tremendous slog of a film, a real step backwards for the James Gunn overseen DC universe of movies and TV shows. Unfortunately, it's the only spark of life in what is otherwise a deeply dour and deeply boring piece of filmmaking. Supergirl is just a misfire on nearly every level. That Slashdot, how dare they? I mean, really. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Blast Radius. I'm here with Kat. We're going to just absolutely bash Supergirl. Probably some House of the Dragon. Almost definitely Quest for Fire. And the one thing I can say good about the Quest for Fire is it is the only movie I've ever seen that had absolutely no need for dialogue. You're still muted, bro. I don't know why.
There, now I'm not muted.
Welcome.
Anyway, I feel like I'm on the wrong side, but that's okay.
Yeah, no, we can do that.
There it is. That feels more natural. Yeah, it would seem that as much as we don't like to brag about these things, our prognostications on the fate of the Supergirl picture proved to be 100% correct, as our prognostications often do. And when our prognostications are this correct, I think we have the right to do a little bit of self-backslapping over it and to do the postmortem, because I think even though it's only just the end of the opening weekend, I think we can safely do a postmortem on this thing, because I just checked right before we went on the air, and this thing has failed to crack $100 million worldwide in its opening weekend. And it's really difficult to overstate just how disastrous this is. Not just for DC Studios in general, but really for James Gunn in particular, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this only the second picture in the James Gunn era at DC? Wasn't the Superman picture the first, and then this one? Do I have that right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
So you've got one picture. I mean, we did do most of an entire show about the Superman picture, and there was a lot that was wrong with it. I didn't enjoy it very much. I still don't understand why there's a collar on the super suit, but that's neither here nor there right now. The point being, that one did okay. It was still a little bit underwhelming based on the way they wanted it to do for the hopes and the aspirations that they had when they brought James Gunn in to run this whole thing. And for those of you keeping score at home, DC has spent about 15 years now trying to get to where Marvel was in 2012. They are not there yet. Let's see if they ever get there. I'm pretty dubious about that ever happening. But you know, you've had one pretty good, slightly underwhelming return, and one absolute catastrophic, unmitigated flop that follows the same blueprint that we've seen over and over and over and over again. We thought this blueprint had played itself out back in 2022, 2023, when every single dumb, woke girl boss superhero picture started flopping and flopping and flopping and flopping. We thought that the Marvels was going to be the nadir of this phenomenon, but it turns out it was not, because Supergirl has just opened to actually pretty significantly less business than the Marvels opened to 3 years ago, I believe it was. And if you go ahead.
What effect do you reckon canceling USAID has in this worldwide production profits?
It's not zero. I'll tell you that. And you know, how off topic do you want me to get here right off the bat? But I'm just
before we go too far. Queen Bird, thank you for the $5. I got a little button I can press over here for just such occasions.
I need you to work this Saturday. No problem. I might be late, though. The transports are slow on weekends. What time will you get here? Monday.
Your Majesty, what do you think about Luke?
I think he's a loser.
Yo, Duque! Pick up the phone!
Yo.
What's up?
You're a legend, Queen Bird, but you already knew that. But I was just gonna say, since you brought up USAID, I was remarking to someone the other day that ever since all of their surreptitious federal funding sources got doged, you might say, has anyone else noticed that Antifa has had much less of a numerous presence around various American cities?
Just
fewer,
an absolute
yes,
dearth of bricks.
a lot fewer pallets of bricks being unloaded on random street corners. It's funny how that happens. Am I suggesting that USAID had anything to do with that? No, but would I be surprised if it did? Absolutely not.
Wow, dude, what a world.
Because we know certain people are highly adept at, let's call it, creative accounting, or if you like, money laundering. Or you kind of surreptitiously channel government money that's supposed to go to the poor and the downtrodden,
Right.
and channel it toward, angry youngsters in helmets
Just
and black sweatshirts
investigate
who like to throw things.
any public service in New York or California, you'll figure out what we're talking about.
Yeah, the New York Democrats had a great day on Tuesday, didn't they?
Is that what they called it?
Man, the Bolshevik takeover has well and truly commenced. I think that's Dan Goldman of all people. Dan Goldman lost his seat in Congress. Dan Goldman, if you don't remember who that is, he was the lead lawyer in the first fake Trump impeachment, and he rode the glory of that obviously into a New York City Congress seat in 2022 and got reelected in 2024, and his ass is gone now because he came up against a stark raving communist, and it did not go well for him because, and this is really bad for the Democrats. We got to talk about how bad this is for the Democrats, and I'll tell you why this is bad for the Democrats. It's because there's about maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe half a dozen cities where these sorts of Islamo-Bolshevik full-on communist candidates can win, but in the entire goddamn rest of the country, not so much. So if these are the people taking over your party, you've got a hell of a big series of problems on your hands, pals.
Do you
That's all
reckon
I'm
it's
saying.
just that they're blind to the reality of the situation, that half of the people in country don't live in New York and LA?
They must be. There obviously is a great deal of very acute cognitive dissonance taking place here. And I honestly don't know what the Democrats are doing, because the Democrats used to be really good at politics. They were better at politics than the Republicans were, and that's what always kept them in the game. But
That's how we got here.
yeah, the time that I really started shaking my head and wondering what the hell was going on was when they lost the 2024 presidential election as badly as they did, and then they left both of their congressional leaders in place, Crying Chuck and Sombrero Man. And now, traditionally, the way that you respond when you lose an election that badly, the very first thing you do on the first day is you swap out your congressional leaders, because obviously the leadership of your current guys isn't working that well. But there they are, Schumer and Jeffries, still, who are both New York City guys, it has to be said. And what just happened in New York City? The communists took over from the left-wing Democrats, the Democrats that we thought were so left-wing, but we had no idea what left-wing really was. Yeah, I guess what we're looking at is the difference between progressive and
Liberal.
outright Bolshevik.
Right. Well, it's like a litmus test, right? Like there's a few shades of pink over there, if you will,
Indeed.
and none of it's purple.
Nope.
It goes, liberal, progressive, communist hellscape. So if you look at LA, that's a highly progressive area. It's just shy of a communist hellscape. Go look at what New York is currently doing, and you can see the how-to manual on how to create a communist hellscape, because this is in real time. You're going to get to watch it happen.
And you have to look also at the demographics of what the electorate looks like in these places. The fully 1/3 of the voters in New York City now are naturalized foreign-born citizens, and the ones who aren't have been raised and brought up in a very co-opted school system that has a vested interest in keeping kids ignorant, low information buffoons who will fall for any spurious appeal to anything that you toss out at them when it comes to election time. And I think most of these youngsters can't even tell you what the difference is between liberal and conservative, much less what the difference is between progressive and communist. They just like the sound of a man who says he's going to give them free stuff, and it's good enough for them. So have my vote.
Run across a waiter at a restaurant here locally, and it's right after a show one night. I was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I was a little bit tanked. I walked down to the Waffle House, and I'm talking to this 21-year-old transgender guy who's gender fluid, non-binary, something or other, and another thing. And I had literally just got off of a panel of ravenous, foaming at the mouth lefties, ranging from your H-1B visa holder all the way through to like the Somalian guy who came over on a boat and they let him stay. And it was hilarious to me. I was laughing so hard I was crying. Anyway, I get down there and I ask him, he asked me what I was, and I said I was a conservative, and he said, "Oh, MAGA." And I said, MAGA is mid-90s liberal fiscal policy, bro. I don't know why you that's not even I'm slightly right of Genghis Khan. And he just looked at me funny, and I said, I want everybody to do what I say. But if we're not going to do that, we got to vote, and it's got to be fair.
And that's the obstacle you run up against when you encounter many of these people, is they have no idea what went on beyond like 5 minutes ago. A lot of these people in the younger generation think that history literally began in 2008. They don't know a single goddamn thing about any event that took place prior to that. And so you have to walk them through all of this stuff. And the reason they vote so consistently for the failed policies of the past is that they don't know they are the failed policies of the past. New York City, for example, just passed a rent control ordinance. And if the reason why people supported this rent control ordinance is because they didn't live in New York City in the 1970s, the last time they had a rent control ordinance, which it basically destroyed the entire city for.
You know what we need to have happen now to go full circle? Now we need the CIA to introduce some new hip drug to the cool kids of the urban youth, right? It needs to turn full New Jack City, and we can finally do a decent RoboCop. I'm down. Let's do it.
Detroit didn't deserve RoboCop anyway. We need New York City RoboCop.
Bro, hold on now. I think Detroit earned RoboCop. I mean, after all, it is the source. It is. Oh my God, that whole Candyman thing. Oh wait, no, that's Chicago, isn't it? That was Cabrini Green.
Another cricket comment. Look at that beautiful cricket comment.
Isn't it gorgeous?
It is gorgeous. It is goddamn gorgeous. Yeah, and you know. Pardon me for just a moment. I'm going to do a little bit of a cricket digression. I felt so bad for Joe Root when Ben Stokes got suspended and couldn't captain the second New Zealand Test match, because Joe Root absolutely hates being the captain. He hates it so much, I'm surprised he didn't hang himself from his shower rod each time he has to be the captain. A man has never hated a thing more than Joe Root hates being captain of England. I'm
absolutely positive you're trying to communicate with me, but you're just so goddamn cute when you talk like this. I don't know what to do about it. All right, so Supergirl. Have we seen it? Have we watched it? Are we going to risk watching the trailer?
I haven't. Yes, let's risk watching the trailer. Okay. They're gonna demonetize the video, and we don't give a fuck.
I had a fuck once, but I lost it.
Yep, lost it a long damn time ago.
Gone. All right.
I don't think I've actually seen any of the trailers, so this will be interesting.
I saw part of it on like maybe a Critical Drinker or something like that.
Yeah, likewise. I may have seen like a few little snippets from it, but I don't think I ever dedicated 2 or 3 minutes to watch the actual whole thing.
We will go directly from the DC and Warner page. All credits to them. We didn't do none of this stuff. We're not making money on this stuff. We don't care about that stuff.
And if you demonetize us for this, how do you know that we weren't trying to promote the movie and get people to go see it?
I'm definitely promoting it. That's exactly. What I promote this thing as an absolute fucking Disaster.
We're not just
Not
content
to make a
farming
movie.
here. We're not ripping on this picture just because it's so easy to rip on. Maybe we like strong, powerful girl bosses, and we think you should go see Millie Alcock's movie in spite of her gigantic underbite.
The quote, Queen Bird, the quote is, yeah, I'll buy that for $1.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a blast from the past.
So I'm gonna throw you another quote, and I want you to identify that movie. Well, at the Hungry Heifer, we won't give you a bum steer. Consider that.
I got nothing.
Just we got 2 minutes and 56 seconds to consider it.
But I will consider it.
It was just touching base to see when you think you might be coming back. You know, I'm just worried that you're not going to find your stride here if you keep going off-world all the time, Kara. I'm worried you're not going to find your people.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, Clark. I have no people.
Hold on. She's like already 17, 18 when she's putting the ship.
Is she? I know she's 23 during the movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Seems to be a relatively adult woman.
Yeah, Millie is 26 if I have it right. And I continue to have. Go ahead.
Maybe they're doing some clever editing here, and this is her somewhere else in the movie. So shouldn't she have been a baby? Wasn't it just like Superman?
It seems like she would have to have been a baby at some point, if I understand Kryptonian biology.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking like I'm not exactly cutting edge on Supergirl origin story. I thought she had virtually an identical origin story to Kal-El.
Well, yeah, because they wanted to keep the origin story as cool as possible, or as close as possible to Superman, because they were trying to just make a female version. So of course you're going to keep the origin story as close as possible. Why wouldn't you?
Okay.
Oh, miss wherever you are, buddy.
As I walk this land of road,
Crypto and I at least had each other.
I have visions of
Honestly, I thought we were lucky.
Okay.
I have so many questions. First and foremost among them, go ahead.
I want you to back up and rethink of what you just watched, but put a young to middle-aged Mel Gibson in that same role. That's $1 billion picture star.
Then it would almost make sense. But
it would make sense at that point. You could do Danny DeVito and it would make more sense.
In the actual event, based on what we're watching right now, I have no idea what the casting process for this title character looked like. Did somebody just see the first few episodes of the first season of House of the Dragon and say, there's our Supergirl?
That's the one.
Is that all the thought that went into it? Is that what actually happened? And beyond that, a separate and only tangentially related question is, who thought it was a good idea to have Supergirl be drunken, mumbling, disheveled, dirty-haired, scowling, glowering, angry girl?
I have a better question. Why does she look like she was assembled from mediocre parts out of a casting department? And how is that hot?
It is not hot, because I'm going to tell you an inconvenient truth
about
the world.
Sir, hold on. I would definitely hit it. So it's hot. But how? I don't understand.
I have no doubt that you would hit it. However, inconvenient truth about the world coming up. If you're making a female superhero movie and you want it to make lots of money, the person you have playing the lead needs to be someone men enjoy looking at. You cannot have a successful girl superhero movie and also avoid the dreaded male gaze, because I'm sorry, The world just doesn't work that way. You can't get away with. I don't want to be mean to Millie Alcock, but let's call things what they are. She's got no ass, no hips, no tits, spindly little chicken legs, and I don't know who they were trying to help by stuffing her bra. Because they clearly stuffed her bra.
You know who I would like to have seen in this role?
Who's that?
Starlight from The Boys. I'm just saying. I think if she got on board with it and did the work, I think she could make a very good Supergirl. Now she is too old.
Well, and she's had so goddamn much ghastly plastic surgery that she can barely move her mouth now. But when she still had her real face, I would have been completely on board with that casting choice. 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of thinking about her from like season 1, to be honest, but
yeah,
I always thought it was a bad cast.
I saw just a very brief clip from one of the season 5 episodes, and it was shocking. I think I physically recoiled from it. Like, you can't have that many facelifts when you're not even out of your 20s yet, sweetheart. My God, what are you doing to yourself?
I had no choice. You understand that, right? I was watching The Boys. I watched every freaking episode. And I'm sitting there watching an episode, and I'm eating me one of my Waffle House sandwiches over here, when suddenly I hear,
smells like a wet shit in a Waffle House in here.
And I laughed so hard, I cried. And when I got done crying and I could finally see, and I rubbed the baking grease out of my eyes, like I literally sprayed hash browns out of my mouth, because it was so funny to me. And it probably shouldn't be that funny to me, but it is.
But that's a very good call, I think. Bringing up Erin Moriarty is her name, if I'm not mistaken, because back when she had her actual face still, she would have been the absolute perfect cast for this role. Millie Alcock, not so much. And ever since I saw that meme where somebody replaced her face with Beavis's face, I can't unsee it. And now I think she looks exactly like Beavis. But it's not my fault because I didn't make the meme.
I saw a meme a couple of days ago that made me laugh so hard I cried. It was the Anakin Padme meme where they're laying in the field, and Anakin says, "I really get off on Bukele," and she says, "You mean Bukaki?" And he just stares at her. Dude, the whole drive to Atlanta earlier, every now and then that thing would cross my mind, and I'd just start giggling. Here's the best part: whoever posted the meme, it was immediately shared to Bukele himself, and he shared it on his Twitter.
I'm gonna say this right now: Episode 2 Padme is the most horrible woman in the history of the world, because she is correctly horrified by Anakin's stalkerish intentions, but she is also the absolute worst prick tease in the entire galaxy. And you gotta pick one, sweetheart. You can't be freaked out and creeped out by him, and also, straddling him in a field and pretending you're not prick teasing him.
You are wrong there. You could be completely creeped out by a guy and turned on by it. These two are not mutually exclusive. Unfortunately
right.
for me.
Right. Because the galaxy is overflowing with women who say, "I can fix him."
Especially extremely wealthy ones that happen to own planetary systems. Like they're like dandruff, bro. It's hard to get rid of them.
I can fix everything that's wrong with that creepy bad boy stalker. Just give me a crack at him.
Hold up. I would like to try to have a conversation with this guy, but I doubt he would want to, because he would be controversially contrarian about it. I like that name. That is a good name, brother. Welcome to the show. We appreciate everybody who participates, and your name gets a participation trophy today. Congratulations.
Welcome, sir.
All right. So, House of the Dragon.
Which you haven't seen, regrettably, but
I haven't, and I'm sorry, but I've been absurdly. Let's finish this thing first. Let's do the thing.
Okay. Let's finish this thing.
But luck, almost by definition, runs out. What can I do?
The Brickens carry the antidote on their person. He has 3 days.
You cannot give up on me.
It's the crime of the Yellow Hills. He murdered my innocent family.
Wait, isn't this the plot to avoid his dog?
It may very well be. And speaking of the dog, I'm hearing a lot of complaints about the dog along the lines of, why couldn't they just use a real dog for the scenes where he's just running and being a normal dog? Can't you just only CGI the scenes where he's flying and shit and doing super dog stuff? Go ahead.
Hold on. How much Crypto have you read?
0.
All right. So Crypto's only a normal dog reluctantly, right? If Superman is present and tells him to be good, as long as Superman is standing right there, Crypto is a perfectly ordinary dog until Superman needs him not to be. And he has to give him a direct order to just stop being silly and come over here and help me, right? But otherwise, if Superman's not around, he's flying around in the house and like chasing squirrels through the trees and shit. It's absurd.
But the point being, many of the reviews that I've seen and read have made a point of complaining about how goddamn ridiculous the dog looks. There's never a moment where you can't tell it's a CGI dog, and that it pulls you, it makes you abandon your suspension of disbelief. And that seems to be a really scathing commentary, because when such a small thing that should be so easy to get right winds up being so bad that every reviewer complains about it, you've got fairly serious problems, my dude. The dog should be the easiest thing to get right. And if it's just a scene where it's a dog being a regular dog, I understand there are some sections of the movie where the dog doesn't actually have his powers. Why can't you just cast a real dog in your $250 million picture? Why does it have to be a CGI dog?
Here's a brilliant piece. You can then use the dog that you've hired, right, with some of that brilliant motion capture shit and get rid of the CGI abomination.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. You can
CGI it, but not an abomination.
You can stick some of those little motion tags all over the dog, film him doing a bunch of shit, make that the basis for your CGI dog model, and Bob's your uncle. Everybody wins. But
how did you know? Who told you about Bob? No. Gotcha. All right. So here it is. It's this thing. It's basically Supergirl Boss. Oh, that's exactly what it is. Supergirl Boss. She's girl boss and she's Supergirl.
They should have just got it over with and called the movie that, frankly.
The Mary Sue.
Just do what I say. And don't die. This does not look like this is going to end well for you guys.
Am I crazy, or did they just suggest that a bar fight took place and didn't actually show it?
I know this is a conversation that we've had numerous times before, but I'm just going to go there again because I haven't seen the movie, obviously, and just from the brief snippets of it that I've seen in trailers and reviews and whatnot, it seems to be very, very James Gunn, very, very, very late period Marvel in terms of very quippy, lots of bathos, lots of meta references.
Actually,
lots of almost fourth wall breaking.
That is almost verbatim what Captain Curmudgeon said backstage before the show.
Yeah, exactly. They have not learned any of the lessons that late period Marvel tried to teach them. And well, why would they want to learn those lessons when James Gunn is the guy they hired? I mean, James Gunn is good at a certain thing. He made the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, and that kind of cinematic ethos worked really well for movies like that. It works less well in Superman and Supergirl.
That movie could have gone horribly wrong if it had had the wrong songs, the wrong actors. The chemistry in that film was absolutely out of this world. I'm not sure how much of James Gunn is actually in that film when it comes to the actual interactions, because those actors and actresses did an exceptional job with really crappy starting point.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't understand why, especially when your first big tent pole of your new rebooted cinematic universe is going to be a Superman picture. You don't hire the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy to make that, because certain characters just do not work with that whole kind of aesthetic.
Here's one right here, Lobo. What do you know about Lobo?
Next to nothing.
So Lobo operates. All right, so I'm going to put a whole huge freaking art series of arcs into like a nutshell, and it's not going to make anybody happy. Okay, Lobo's this dude. Might once have been the epicenter of a concept or something. Anyway, you can't kill him. He doesn't really do that dying thing. Death has spat him back out. He has been cursed by death himself to never die. Like, he simply will not come take him. And so no matter, he's kind of like Deadpool in that sense, but he's also like a medieval moron. And so he's just this thick dude bra who never quite seems to understand what's going on, but he's got a target and he can smell where they're at. So you can't escape from him. Once he decides he's going to find you, he just does. And it doesn't matter if you're in a top secret penitentiary or hiding in a multidimensional freaking space fabric. It doesn't matter. He's going to find you. He's probably going to stab you or something. Like, he's not a good guy. I mean, he's not exactly evil.
I'm just going to throw this out there, but it seems like Jason Momoa only ever plays Jason Momoa.
Sure. But my whole point is, who cares who plays Lobo? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. You could have turned and looked at random asshole on the set number 3, and as long as he had a halfway decent 6-pack, threw his ass on a motorcycle and gave him the makeup, and nobody would have batted a fucking eye. But they padded the budget another, what, 200,000, 200 million? How much they pay Momoa for this role? Who knows? Right?
I think he's in it for about 7 or 8 minutes, and I bet he got 10 million at least.
Yeah. Well, I mean, bully for him. I mean, I don't got no hate for him individually. I mean, I'd have took the damn role if they offered it. Probably for a damn sight cheaper.
If you can make that kind of money just playing yourself, playing the same thing you play in every other movie, then more power to you.
More power to you, my brother.
Absolutely no disrespect from me whatsoever, but it doesn't bode well for the status quo of DC in the bigger 30,000 foot picture, because as we mentioned, they've spent about a decade and a half now just trying to get to where Marvel was in 2012. They are on their second Batman, their second Superman, and they've already had Jason Momoa playing 2 different characters, which makes me inclined to think that you might not have had a very good larger plan when you went into this thing, that you're just grasping for straws and throwing money around, just desperately hoping that anything will work and make money.
Right. And Jason Momoa makes money just about everywhere you stick him. So we're going to stick him in here too. And it makes no sense. Like I said, why him? He was a mistake. He is Aquaman. Let him own the role. Don't drift him too thick through the product so that you don't end up wearing everybody thin. Because let's be honest, that whole Minecraft movie, dude, like, I know a bunch of people who loved it, and I know people who watch it like twice a day. I'm not even joking. I'm sorry, it was a bit too much Chris Black and Jason Momoa.
I'm going to throw something out right now that I'm willing to bet will get a lot of agreement from the audience, and it's this. I absolutely would watch a show starring Jason Momoa called The Adventures of Khal Drogo. I would watch that all goddamn day long.
Dude, I'm sure he's got a son out there somewhere. We could cast him as the young Carl back before he was Carl, right? And just have like fat Jason Momoa telling stories and having the kid go do all the important stuff. And at the end of each episode, you cut in and there's like another fight between him and an opposing Carl. Right.
He's still plenty young enough to play the character before he ever met Daenerys. So for a lot of people, he's their favorite thing about early period Game of Thrones. So why not lean into that? Like I said, I would watch that show all day long. Khal Drogo is fucking awesome. That role is the best thing Jason Momoa has ever done, and it was the first thing Jason Momoa has ever done. So
I don't know. There is a show called Frontier. And he plays like a really rough, rude trapper guy that lives out on the edge. He's like half native, half French or something like that. And he's just grew up out there with the natives and a couple of French dudes. And he does a very, very convincing job of not being Samoan or wherever he's from.
Oh, good for him. I'm not familiar with it, but maybe I should check it out.
I'm pretty sure the name of it's Frontier. Let's try to finish this, dude. We've got less than an hour.
Yeah. Cue it up.
Hurting my head.
Revenge. It won't take your pain away.
How is Momoa less than 7 minutes of the movie and in half the trailer? PR,
and
marketing. That is marketing, sir.
Yeah, and you've also got the same problem with Millie in the Supergirl outfit, which I understand she only wears right at the very end of the third act. But how often do you see it in the trailers? The trailers would lead you to believe she wears the costume throughout the entire picture, when in fact she's just playing random drunk girl for almost the entirety of the proceedings. And I could understand feeling alienated by that if I had gone to see the movie based on the trailers and she only puts on the outfit in the last several minutes of the piece.
Well, that's been kind of a common occurrence in some of the superhero movies.
It is.
They try to subvert the superhero franchise by telling a real human story inside of a superhero package. And while that can work when you're dealing with like emotionally lax characters like Deadpool, who are just funny to watch happen, or Logan. Freaking Wolverine. You can do the same thing with Wolverine because he's going to forget about it tomorrow anyway. So it works. But when you try to do that same thing with someone like freaking Catgirl or this abomination, Supergirl, you try to make them a complicated, deep, and complex character. And in reality, you just show that she is the most shallow, insignificant individual, because with the Spider-Man franchise nailed it. With great power comes great responsibility, and she has no responsibility whatsoever. She pretty much shirks all of it right off the bat.
And I know we've talked before about how terrible the last iteration of cinematic Supergirl was, the 1984 Helen Slater picture. It's my entry for worst picture ever to feature two Oscar winners in Faye Dunaway and Peter O'Toole. But setting that aside, just look at the difference between how the lead actress was photographed in that movie and how the lead actress is photographed in this movie. Back then, Helen Slater was photographed like, let's face it, she was a stunningly beautiful young woman. She's still a rather stunningly beautiful woman today in her late 60s, mostly because she hasn't had plastic surgery, but that's not important now. The point is, they photographed her in a way that evinces the fact that these filmmakers understood that if you're making a girl superhero movie, she needs to be somebody that men enjoy looking at. And hell, even men would enjoy looking at 1984 Helen Slater. Let's be honest. She was stunningly beautiful, and they photographed her that way. And so how do you get from that to dirty face, dirty hair, scowling, glowering, disheveled. Who wants to look at that? I don't want to look at. She looks like she needs to go take a bath and then call me and we'll talk. I just don't understand.
She looks like she'd wait for you to call.
She looks, as I mentioned to you in a text message the other day, she looks like the last girl in the bar on a Tuesday night. And I don't say that in a complimentary way.
I bet she tastes like TV static.
Your eyes are beautiful when you cry. A lot of pain, a lot of suffering.
There's no home without you, buddy.
Dear God in heaven.
And this shouldn't have been difficult to screw up. And you know why? You know, the luxury you have with Supergirl is, for once, you have a reasonable excuse for a little noodle-armed 98-pound woman to defeat a big hulking man in single combat, because she is Kryptonian and has superpowers, and you shouldn't be able to screw that up. Somehow they have still managed to screw it up. Why is she wearing stupid bicycle shorts under the Supergirl skirt? I don't know, but that looks ridiculous too. But I guess we have to have sort of weirdly Muslim sensibilities for the way we outfit girl superheroes in girl superhero pictures now. And I go back to the most obvious example being the Marvels, where all three of those girls covered from head to toe, not a speck of flesh showing, the most unflattering costumes you could possibly imagine, specifically calibrated to avoid any possible hint of any kind of female curvature. And who are we helping here? Is the male gaze that terrible that you have to make your female heroes completely miserable to look at?
Keep in mind, Leia was taped down filming Empire Strikes Back.
Indeed.
For jiggle factor.
Yep.
Apparently, it was disturbing to everybody on set, as in distracting, as in the camera kept bouncing with them instead of with her.
I like the story that Carrie used to tell about how she said they should get the crew together and auction off the right to rip the gaffer's tape off of her tits at the end of every day.
It probably would have purchased a bit more special effects, to be honest.
Carrie Fisher was a good one.
She was a sport. She was a sport through all of it.
Yep.
Aren't you the ditz from that dive bar?
Funny. That's what I've been calling you.
Touche.
How did touche? When you growl, it doesn't sound nearly as cool. Touche.
And that, as I understand it, that female millennial screenwriter, this is the first full-length screenplay she has ever written. So take that for what you will, I guess. Because God forbid we make a girl superhero movie that wasn't written by a girl screenwriter. I guess that's just a bridge too far in woke Hollywood, I would imagine.
Well, it's all AI now anyway, so she's going to get fired. Doesn't matter. Next is House of the Dragon. You want?
Ooh, episode 2 just dropped 4 minutes ago.
Oh no! You want to watch party after this? I'm going to shoot shots. That's my plan. Like I drove. What is it, like a 400-mile round trip to Atlanta and back, and I did it in like less time than legally possible.
Yeah, you had a hell of an afternoon.
Yeah, my brain is still fried.
Ladies and gentlemen, this man had to go to heroic lengths to get here in time for the show, so let's give him a nice slow clap.
Well, the heroic links were for my daughter, and I'd do it twice a day. But
of course,
I just tried to get back for the show because I don't like to interrupt things that I've got planned. I'm autistic, you know.
Absolutely. So should I walk the audience through what happened?
Season 3? Season 3?
Yep, season 3, episode 1 dropped last Sunday. Episode 2, like I mentioned, dropped 4 minutes ago. And the weird thing about the build up to this season of House of the Dragon was, I mean, first of all, it's just weird that the TV watching experience is so much different than it used to be. It used to be, 26 episodes in a season and then 5 months of no season, and then the next season starts. But now you get 10 episodes if you're lucky, 8 episodes more often, and then you have to wait 2 goddamn years for the next season. The next season takes so long to materialize that you almost have to go back and watch the last season just to refresh your memory of what the hell happened. And
I'm going to go back and watch The Night of the Seven Kingdoms. That's what I'm going to do.
That deserves to be rewatched more than the second season of House of the Dragon does, because that's been the other interesting thing to observe in the lead up to this release of season 3, in that it's been the general sentiment has seemed to be more dread than anticipation, because everyone was so very deeply upset and disappointed with how the last season ended, and with good reason, because the first episode of season 3 that just dropped last Sunday was supposed to be the 9th episode of season 2. And I guess from what I've heard, it was an HBO decision that came down, and they said to the producers, we're not going to do 10 episodes in season 2. It's only going to be 8 episodes. So do whatever you need to do to tie the thing up in a bow and create us a cliffhanger for the start of the next season. And I can't say whether that had anything to do with the fact that HBO was in the middle of a merger at the time and might have been trying to cut costs any way they could, but it would align with the known events. The point being, people have been looking forward to the start of this season with kind of a combination of apprehension and dread, let's say. But I thought the first episode wasn't too bad. My expectations were low, and I think they were exceeded. And I know we're deviating farther and farther away from the source material, but particularly where the depiction of the Battle of the Gullet was concerned, I thought the deviations for the source material were defensible and well advised.
So keep in mind, the only stories you get of this in the literature, at the beginning of that particular book, it's what is it? A couple of kids get up into the septums for the doctor folks with the chains. What are they called?
Maesters.
Maester. He gets into the Maester's tower, and they get a hold of one of the history books, and it's like, I don't think it's Stark kids, but it's some a noble house's kids, and it's a 12 or 13-year-old reading to like a 10-year-old boy. It's a 12 or 13-year-old girl reading to a 10-year-old boy. And it's about all of the different stories of the different knights of the Seven Kingdoms that are kept here in this particular library. And as they're going through in the different, at the very beginning, it's done kind of like, not the Never-Ending Story, the other one. The Princess Bride. It's done like Princess Bride, where he's not feeling well, he doesn't want to deal with the shit, and so she reads him a story, and the story happens to be like House of the Dragon. But that version of the story is the collated and countenanced barred writing of the story that was probably financed by the house in question, right?
Right. And that is the way that history used to be written before historiography became a thing, because
right. And so what we're watching is the actual events that took place, and the historicity is less important.
Yeah, exactly. Because the way history used to be written, obviously it cost a hell of a lot of money to have a scriptorium and people writing books and people doing research, and the books that were produced, because obviously it was the ruler of a kingdom who was paying for all this to be done. The ruler of the kingdom wants a history to be written that reflects favorably on himself and his ancestors, which is exactly why Shakespeare wrote all of his stuff the way he wrote it, because he wanted it to reflect favorably on the Stuarts, who were currently ruling England at the time he was writing. Because you're not going to get yourself in trouble by writing the actual history that might reflect unfavorably on the current regime. You're going to write a version of history that makes them look really totally awesome and above reproach and wonderful.
Unless you're Michelangelo, and then you can make a fool of your patron because you're just that damn good.
Because I'm Michelangelo, motherfucker.
Right? Laying on his back in the Sistine. I'm Michelangelo, bitch.
Yeah, Michelangelo did not give one single fuck.
No, dude, I'm gonna make you a fat baby with little tiny wigs, and all your little council members are gonna be other little fat babies. All right. This is the first episode trailer.
All right.
It's not working.
These are turbulent times.
Rhaenyra is coming. You're no longer safe here.
Huh, who's that dude?
That is Ormond Hightower, nephew of Otto Hightower, current head of House Hightower.
Right. Well, he looks like a right cunt. No, he just looks like a right cunt to me, man. Like somebody might need to push him off that horse.
He fits in very well as a Hightower, from what I've observed so far.
Their defeat is written. We'll secure the city. Without further bloodshed.
The Queen has many dragons. But her subject.
All right, so I'm gonna be honest. I'm hanging out in my little penny ante hovel and southern side of the wrong side of the tracks in Dorne, and I see a fucking dragon fly over. Yeah, I think there's fixing to be a change into the guard here, bro. Like, we ain't got nothing for that.
Yep, and there's been one more dragon wiped off the board this week, in addition to the 2 last year. So they're it's getting not difficult to see why the Dance of the Dragons wound up in there being no goddamn more dragons.
Well, you have to have genetic diversity for that to work, supposedly. But at the same time, when you have 70 people flying dragons and they're the last 70 viable dragons on Earth, and the 70 people fight until there's 4 dragons left, there's not much you could do about it.
And I think there's only about half a dozen left at this point. And regarding the Battle of the Gullet, I have a couple of caveats to this that I will get into, but I thought it's one of the best depictions of an Age of Sail sea battle that I've ever seen depicted on screen. And I thought they did a really outstanding job with it. And I think the deviations from the source material were good decisions, because in the book at the Battle of the Gullet, you've got way more dragons there than you want there to be when you're trying to depict it on screen, because you can't have 8 or 10 dragons, because it's just going to make the audience lose track of which dragon is which. In the event, the way they made it, there's only 3 dragons present. There's Prince Jacaerys on Vermax, and there's Baela on Moondancer, and there's Rhaena on Sheepstealer. And Rhaena, when she screws the pooch of the whole thing, because it's the second time she has ever ridden a dragon, and she decides, well, I'm going to go straight into combat. And so that's why Prince Jacaerys is dead. And there are going to be very serious consequences that redound to young Rhaena, I think, on tonight's episode. And I think she might not get out of the episode alive, if I'm being honest.
You got to kill people sometimes.
Do not feel safe, nor should they.
I see you have been merciful. But the crown is a weight that crushes. You'll do things that spell death for all involved.
Little by little. Bite by bite. We are exposing her as weak and unsuited to rule.
My enemies have been allowed to muster their strength.
She'll certainly fail.
And we raise our own throne. In a war, all suffer.
Okay, I want to say, I did not expect the absolute knockout performance that Homeboy's given in that role. I didn't see it coming.
Which guy?
This dude.
And we raise our own throne. In a war.
That guy. And I can't remember his name, but he was the doctor once.
Matt Smith.
Right. I don't like him, generally speaking, as an actor. Just on its surface, he seems to be kind of monotone about just about everything. In this role, it works. Yo, mama.
I think it does. I think it works too. And I think also Ewan Mitchell, who plays Aemond, the eye patch guy, he has done a really, really outstanding job. It's probably my favorite performance in the whole show. And it's
I haven't seen him do a whole lot, but at
Me
the
either.
same time, you know,
But
and as far as even in this role is what I'm saying. In this role, he
Yeah.
just basically stands there and glowers at folks.
It's a role that requires a very certain something. And if the actor you chose didn't have the certain something, it might cause the whole ensemble to fall apart. But they chose really well. Yeah,
He
there's a
is
certain
creepy as hell, bro. Even as a kid.
absolutely. Yeah.
Even as
Yeah.
a kid, he is creepy.
All suffer.
We've come so far, and yet you still don't know who you are.
Have you not betrayed your queen? Bring Aegon, the usurper, to me.
Did I not warn you that you would come to this?
Is it terrible?
It's not, but I will tell you the big problem I have with the depiction of the naval battle, which again I generally very much liked. However, the Valarian fleet is depicted as being made up of square-rigged, three-masted ships that we would expect to see in the early to mid 18th century period. But they also have oarsmen, about 20 oarsmen on either side. So all the ports in the side of the hull are for oars to come out, which that never actually happened in the real world. Ships of the line in the 18th century were many hundreds of years after we stopped using oars and oarsmen to propel our ships of war. But the question I have is, if all of the ports in the side of the ship are for oars to come out, what the hell is the primary armament of the vessel? Because a ship of the line from the 18th century, it has all those ports in the side, but the ports are for cannons to stick out so you can shoot at the other son of a bitch. So what are we doing here? That's the one thing I can't figure out about the depiction of this battle. And I know I'm probably overthinking it, but I overthink lots of things, so it is what it is.
Yeah, it wasn't out of the way. Anyway, so give me your out of 10.
I'm gonna give it a 6. I felt like as we've talked about before, there have been in the previous seasons of this show deviations from the source material that didn't arise out of anything narratively useful, but really only the fact that we wanted to race swap and gender swap certain roles so that we could just have the fucking thing be more inclusive, but we know how that goes. But this, I thought I thought the deviations from the source material were actually mostly well thought out, and they made sense. There are some things that don't really make sense. For example, in the book, as we know, there are a lot more dragons present at the Battle of the Gullet. All of the dragon seeds are there. Your Ulf the White and your Hugh Hammer and your Adam of Hall. They are all present in the book, but in the episode they have sidelined them in what I think is kind of a clumsy way, because they're all just sort of sitting on the banks of the lake across from Harrenhal, just waiting for something to happen, which makes me think, why would they be sitting on the bank across the lake and not hanging out at the castle with everybody else? That seems stupid. They're goddamn dragon riders. Why would they keep their distance? They're going to go in there and avail themselves of the hospitality of House Strong and Harrenhal, and they're going to hang out with Daemon and Caraxes, and all their dragons can go play in the sky. I thought that part was kind of awkward and wasn't executed all that well. But however, like I said, I think it was a good idea only having 3 dragons present for the Battle of the Gullet, because otherwise it just would have been a visual overload, and the audience wouldn't have been able to keep track of which dragon was which and which rider was which. And I also think it's a pretty good narrative innovation, even though it's the deviation from the source material that has pissed off the most people, which is eliminating the character of Nettles and having Rhaena be the one who claims Sheep Stealer and then rides him into battle. But I think they did it in a fairly good way, because she is the one that screws the pooch of the whole thing. She thinks she's just going back to Dragonstone to tell the queen that, hey, I claimed a dragon, so I'm so cool. I've scored so many points. I've done the thing I wanted to do. Aren't I awesome? She's about to land there, and she looks off to her left and sees that there's a battle going on in the gullet. So she decides quite stupidly, even though it's only the second time she's ever ridden a dragon, let's go directly into combat. The dragon quickly stops following her instructions, and it just starts burning the good guys and the bad guys and the dragons that are supposed to be his friend. And Prince Jacaerys basically winds up getting killed because she stupidly rushed into the battle. And the ramifications of that are what I am looking eagerly forward to seeing on the episode that has just dropped here a few minutes ago.
Sorry, I have 2 dogs that are like growling at each other next to me. One of them's 130 pounds, so I don't want to lose a finger. That's not
take that finger. That's a good boy. There's a good boy.
Anyway, so good mojo, bad mojo. You're calling it a 6, so good mojo. And this is assuming what's Knight of the Seven Kingdom. That's,
and it's also, it's a weirdly awkward thing, because you're watching a season premiere that was originally intended to be the 9th episode of the previous season, which in the tradition of the Song of Ice and Fire franchise, the 9th penultimate episode of the season is normally where you have the big knockdown drag out battle of the season, and then the 10th episode is the ramifications and consequences of the battle from episode 9. So, but now everything is completely off kilter, because we've had a season premiere episode in which the traditional episode 9 battle is taking place. And if nothing else, I don't know how the rest of the season is going to play out, just because they have been knocked so far out of their normal sequence of how these things are typically depicted. So I am looking eagerly forward to see what happens tonight. Don't have a good feeling for Rhaena, like I said.
I might have to do a doubleheader.
Yeah, you definitely will have to do a doubleheader.
Watch it,
and then I'm curious to know what you think when you see the both of them.
I'll be honest with you. I was not a huge fan of the first season. Not a whole lot.
First season I liked very much. The second season had a lot of problems, which have been, very heavily discussed in a wide series of places. But
so let me ask you this: what are the chances that they Andor their way out of this?
I don't think I ever saw the second season of Andor, so I can't say.
Oh.
I'm still meaning to watch it, but I still haven't.
I got you. So probably not going to be a work of clever writing.
Well, who can say, really? And it's, as we know from the last few seasons of Game of Thrones, when you deviate farther and farther away from the source material, it's more difficult to say how things are going to play out narratively. As we know with Game of Thrones, it wound up being an absolute god-awful disaster for basically the last 2 entire seasons. And I think a lot of people are expecting that here, especially with as underwhelming as many people thought the second season was, because, as I mentioned before, it created the impression that a lot of the deviations were being done without much of a thought to what their consequences were going to be. And we wound up with things like Matt Smith, Daemon Targaryen, just kind of wandering around Harrenhal seeing ghosts for half the season. And that's not what anybody wants to see with the most prominent actor and major character in the entire series doing for an entire season. At least I don't, but hopefully they can
wasn't
recover.
what I was looking forward to either.
Yeah. And I know that George Martin isn't really on board with this show at all anymore. He got really pissed off by a bunch of the stuff they did in the second season. I guess he and Ryan Condal, the showrunner, don't even talk to each other anymore. So that is regrettable. You would like the creator of the franchise to be at least offering his thoughts, but you know, George Martin has a big ego, as he should. You would expect a guy like that to have a big ego, but I think he sometimes doesn't understand that certain deviations from the source material have to be made, because you just can't make a TV show the same way you make a book like Fire and Blood. There are certain deviations that simply are necessary. And I understand why he thinks that some of the deviations were stupid and harmed the story, and I agree with him, but there have been others that I think are probably more of a narrative necessity.
Sure. I kind of feel like it's dry ground in the first place, though. A lot of people were put off by the end of Game of Thrones, and I know a bunch of people who just haven't even looked back to it, and it's been difficult because I'm out there in the trenches going, no, you've got to watch The Night of the Seven Kingdoms. You could slug that thing into any medieval fantasy anywhere on Earth, and it would just plop its happy ass down and be functional.
Absolutely, and that show should be watched on its own merits, without your perspective being colored by anything you saw in any other show in the franchise, because it deserves that opportunity, and it's worth it. And it
does deserve that opportunity.
It is an absolutely brilliant piece of work, and I can't wait for the second season, because they earned that anticipation. It was just, again, we talked about just about every episode of it, and they hit that one out of the park. That is as good as this franchise can be. That is as good as fake history can be.
I mean, I hate to say it, in its own way, it is better than the original Game of Thrones. It is a rare case of like a Mandalorian type of phenomenon taking place within an extant franchise.
Absolutely. And you can forgive a show for having a spotty first season, or working its way up to a level of quality that it eventually gets to. Star Trek The Next Generation is a good example. You know, the first season kind of sucked. Second season sucked a little bit less. And then all of a sudden, season 3, it becomes one of the best shows ever that is still absolutely immortal and everybody loves. Night of the Seven Kingdoms, they were already hitting it out of the park, hitting it down the ground for 6, to put it in cricket terms, right out of the gate. And more power to them.
No idea what you mean. Do that thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks ever so much for joining us here on the Blast Radius tonight. We sure do appreciate you being with us, as we always do. We hope you have a great rest of your evening. Go watch that new House of the Dragon episode right now, and we'll talk about it next week. Have a great tomorrow and a fantastic rest of your week, and we will see you next Sunday, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, as we always do. Take care. See you next time. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.